Okay, so by now you should have written down your objective. What is our objective? Can I have somebody to read it for us? Skylar.
Describe how to work productively and courteously in the group.
Thank you. Okay, so that is our objective. Okay, the question that's going to guide us today is what grouping arrangements best meet the needs of these students, us, for this particular activity. So today we're going to figure out how the groups are going to be formulated and then what those roles are in the groups. And the purpose of this is that students learn to work together towards a common goal. And this is a skill that is essential for both effective workplaces and democratic communities. So working in groups is important in human life because you have to learn how to work with other people. Whether you are on the basketball team. How many people in here? Oh, y'all not about that life. Okay, so no hoopers in here. Okay.
Mr. Kelly, you on the team?
I was just saying, are you on the team?
Nope.
Okay, I just saying, are you on the girls? Did you try for the girls basketball team? You on the squad? Oh, y'all had a game yesterday. Oh, how'd it go?
67 to 22.
Nice. Can we get a round of that? Yeah. Lady Trojans. We're trying to put some shine on to Robin because she's actually on the team. I'm just saying. Okay, so on the basketball team, okay, Robin has to learn how to work in a group. Okay, she has to learn how to work together towards a common goal. Now, we may have our own individual goals, but that can't come before the common goal of meeting the objective. Otherwise, good morning. Otherwise, the group fails. Question.
What if you have to work in a group yet you have like social anxiety or like it's just like really awkward trying to talk to other people?
That's a great question, and that's why we go ahead and get it started right here in the classroom so that when you do get into the professional or corporate world, it won't look so awkward when you're asked to work in different groups, because you will be asked to work in different groups. Like I work in different groups here in the school. In the course of the 2 videos, find 5 facts that you can just jot down on your paper. Doesn't matter what 5 facts that you find. I mean, obviously don't find something like her shirt was yellow, her hair was nappy. Okay, find 5 actual facts and not opinions about the concept that they're discussing. What does it look like to work together as a group?
Come on, leave with us. Virgie, get off your phone.
Oh my god! Drake is my boyfriend. Let's snap.
Chris, can you get off your
Says butt tree.
Drake.
Come on, guys, we have work to do.
Actually told me that he
Open your book. That's not what we're doing.
Let's
Come on,
snap.
guys. Let's get focused.
What does it look like to work together as a group? And this would be what it should look like.
Okay, we're supposed to read chapter 9, section 1, and then we're supposed to open any questions on the chapter and evaluate any ideas. Thank you. Where do you turn?
Okay, so section 3 says federalism and it asks us how is power shared. The framers wanted the states and the nation to become partners.
Oh, wait, what does partners mean?
Oh yeah.
Look it up.
Yeah, let's look that up because I don't know what partners are either.
Okay, so this time in the video you should have noticed, as Johanse said, you should have noticed that there were actual descriptions and titles for the group members. So they all had a different responsibility. So at first it told you what the title of that group member was, but it didn't tell you their responsibility. It just showed you how they were responding in the group. But then secondly, it told you when you saw the good example of it, what their actual responsibility in the group was according to that title. And it demonstrated them performing that specific title and duty. So here is a little explanation about why we do groups and how effective they can be. This is number 2. Remember, you're looking for 5 facts all together.
We're gonna pretend the whole class is one group. And we wanna see how well you work together. You need to get in line by the day you were born without talking.
Because we teach group work to our students, they know they have a piece to contribute.
No words.
They know how to use their resources in other people, and they know how to build ideas together.
Now we're gonna say the day you were born.
7, 9,
10.
11.
Remember, don't pay so much attention
We
to the
got
actions of the students. Listen to the narrator and the teachers as they give information. Get your 5 facts from that.
We are an all honors curriculum here, which means we're providing high-level instruction from grades 7 to 12. Given that, however, we have entirely heterogeneous classes where you've got kids of all different previous levels of achievement.
At University Park, you're going to see group work from grades 7 all the way to grades 12. We start in 7th grade with roles and responsibilities.
You want to make sure you understand what are the responsibilities of each of the roles that you've been given.
I don't think group work comes naturally. I think it's something that they have to learn.
1 + 8.
Today we were learning about integers, positive and negative numbers. Now it's time to take the basic skills and transfer it into real world solving problems.
The person who's the questionnaire, you will come up and get the problem because you have to read the problem to your group partners.
For this particular activity, we give roles. There would be a questioner, a summarizer, and a clarifier.
The clarifier will set up the problem, make sure each group member agrees with the plan.
One side of the paper that I gave them would be prompts, so that it helps them take away that nervousness because it says, oh, you have to say something.
If you're not sure how to start the conversation, if you want to say something, use those sheets.
Teachers want us to learn with each other, so we can all know what different ways you can solve a problem, and not just the teacher's way. I personally really love that because I like to experience how other people solve the problem, so see if I can have a strategy for that too.
He's giving
Is
good
it done by the end of the
information
year? By no means. No. I mean, it's a struggle day in and day out for sure. But they definitely get better at it.
Yeah.
We're not just pushing desks together and thinking that's group work now, but really giving challenging assignments that require multiple voices, that require people to have a role in building knowledge together.
He gave good
And so
information
we build
there.
it that way. We'll kind of pull away some of the scaffolds as the kids get older, and then you can really see them working together in a collaborative way.
So it's 7.5 by 7.5.
We're making the polynomial cube. He's working on the bigger box, so we put things in, and I'm working on the small pieces for now.
We're starting a unit on polynomials.
It'll be similar to what you did here.
When you're dealing with polynomials, you're dealing with dimensionality, so they're all building 8 shapes with an outer box, hopefully to tie together the symbolic and the spatial.
Which one do you want to do?
7.5.
By the 7.5 cube?
Yeah.
Alright, then I'll do one of the 12.5s by 7.5.
A good group work problem, it's got to be so big that you need your partner to help decide on the organization, to try this while you were trying something related to it.
Starting this project, I was really confused because this class is fairly difficult. But I find that when you go to other classmates, it helps tremendously.
And then they can be talking to the other groups around them
Gave some good
and seeing maybe a different way to tweak their process.
So what he did was he came up here and drew each box that this group had. Although we're in our own individual groups, it's very helpful to go into another group and ask questions. When you finally get to the answer, it sticks with you longer than the teacher just telling you the answer.
Oh, I see.
You gave some good information there.
The world more and more relies on people being able to work together, to collaboratively solve problems.
He gave some good information there.
We have, and then y'all can do how much everything is in total.
You know, I have kids come to me every single day. I had 4 7th graders come to me the other day. They want to do a bake sale to raise money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
So all the money we make in the bake sale is going to go towards this charity.
So you've got some people on board already to help out. You're going to stay after today?
Yeah, but they just need to know when they have to have it by. So.
They see the value in teamwork. Well, you can go put Friday on that announcement.
All right.
And we'll go on Friday.
Yay!
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here's some statistics. Students improved 52% between 8th grade and 10th grade on the MCAS state test for science and technology. So he said that the teacher wants to make sure that we, in so many words, I'm paraphrasing, he says the teacher wants to make sure that we interact with each other and that we learn from each other different ways of doing things other than just the teacher's way of doing things. Okay, so I'm here to provide you with instruction. I've created the lessons, but I haven't created the instruction necessarily. You know what I'm saying? The concepts have already been built. I'm just trying to deliver them to you in an interesting way that will catch on. But I want you to be able to think for yourselves. And what I want you to grasp from groups is that if you can't come to some type of an answer, that you feel comfortable going to someone else to seek help. You might not like their answer, or you may think that their answer was worth all the effort to go and grasp from that person. Okay, so what are just some of the facts that you noticed? Other than, you know, it was at a certain school in a certain state. What were some of the facts about groups that we noticed? Davio?
The textbook reader was just worried about her boyfriend.
Okay, so the textbook reader, and as we have a reader in our group, she wasn't performing, this is from the first video, she wasn't performing her duty. And when we look at the bad way to perform as a group, okay? What else did we notice? Kamarion, you had your hand up.
They all had roles in a group.
They all had roles in a group, okay? So we're not just pushing people together and saying, do the assignment. Okay, everyone has a specific role in the group and responsibility. Maya.
Well, I noticed that the little boy, he was being very observant, like observing everybody.
Which one, first or second video?
Second video.
Second video, okay.
He was observing everybody, and like he was like pointing out the facts and pointing out the important stuff, not just doing it and slapping something together. He was really trying to understand what everybody was doing, so he could come up with a strategy.
Okay, she said one of the gentlemen in the second video, he may have had the task of observing. And one of the important things about what Maya said is she was able to notice that he was actually observing. So when we get into the groups, I demote myself from the role of teacher and I just become the facilitator. So you all are teaching and learning from each other. All I'm coming around to do is see that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I should be able to observe that you're doing that so that everyone can get an individual grade, though the group will still get a group grade. So you'll still get an individual grade. So good, that was good that you were able to observe that. Skylar.
I've noticed that in both of the videos that people in groups seem to work together when they're actually cooperating. And I'm pretty sure it will be a lot harder and it will be more time consuming if they worked alone or all of them were arguing or not doing what they're meant to do.
Okay, so when everyone is on one accord, the group runs smoother. But if you have to play babysitter and you have to say, hey, come on, get to work, come on, what are you doing? Why are you on your phone? Okay, it becomes strenuous on other people. And most of us have probably been in a group where we had to carry the load or we've noticed someone else carrying the load because someone wasn't working. And it gets frustrating when you're like, okay, well, I don't want to have to do all the work, but I know my grade depends on this, so I will just have to do what I have to do. And become strenuous. Robin had her hand up. Never mind. You psychically sent it over to Maya? Okay.
I was saying, like, when they was working in the group, it's like different because what the lady was saying yesterday, she said a lot of people don't get along in groups because, like, we are different and stuff like that. So, like, in the video, they was just all come together. Like, if we was to have a group in here, somebody would be doing something different.
But what was the purpose of yesterday's lesson? And
To learn how to work and solve problems. Learn how to collaborate.
learn how to collaborate together. So the lady, or Dr. Barham, she was trying to give us certain, as I mentioned earlier, norms and rules to govern the group. So, and just like what we have, it's just like what we have in regular life. If we don't have laws, which tend to get on our nerves, if we don't have laws, people would be doing whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it. And it may seem fun until somebody comes around and does something to you that you don't like, and there's no consequence for it. Okay, so we have to have laws because there's a lot of different things running through people's minds, and half of it is crazy. Okay, so we have to have laws that govern us, and so because we saw that they were getting along and it was not chaotic, we can assume that there were rules and norms in place. All right, so we're going to go to some notes about all of this. So you saw the video form of it. Now you're going to receive some actual information on it. So on the same sheet of paper, on the very same sheet of paper, you're going to just copy these notes here. So cooperative group learning is a mixed group that sinks or swims together because each person is responsible for, and I'll scroll it down in a few. Okay, let's scroll down. Okay, it is characterized, so it's kind of chopped off. It is characterized by, this is A, by an attitude of interdependence.
Write that down?
Yep. So we're still taking notes. Characterized by an attitude of interdependence. Okay? And just for a second, let's go to the definition of interdependence, just so we know exactly what it means. Okay. Interdependence is what? So it's the quality or condition of being interdependent or mutually reliant on each other. Mutually meaning that the responsibility is divided equally. We're mutually reliant, relying on each other. So that means that no one has more of the burden or the task than the other person. Okay, part B says cooperative groups help their team members to achieve the objectives. Okay, members are held individually accountable. Members are held individually accountable. Members are held individually accountable. Teams with a score greater than the minimum will receive special recognitions. Teams with a score greater than the minimum will receive special recognition. And the groups, or the people in the groups, will learn to value giving and receiving help. Giving and receiving help. Copy down the role of the reader, because some of you will be the reader. Okay, so the reader reader reads the material aloud to the group and makes sure all of the group members are listening.
Well, you said the reader will do what?
The reader reads the material aloud to the group and makes sure all members are listening. Okay, but these people will also be reading the entire story. Okay, so we're going to be reading the story Marigolds. And so it's going to be very imperative when drawing conclusions that, let's put that away, Robin. It's going to be very imperative when drawing conclusions that the members are first listening to the story. So, for the most part, the only thing I should really hear would be the reader at first. And then small conversation in between once you get to the different conclusions or the different information. So for instance, this is how the assignment looks. Remember, when drawing a conclusion, you take the information that the author gives you. So I've read through the story already, because I always have to before you all read it, because I'm the teacher. But I read through the story already, and I've already pulled out spots that I thought struck out for the reader to end up drawing a conclusion from, which means that the author did not really provide an answer for it, and so we have to conclude what would have happened in that situation. Okay, so I put out that information. I referenced the page number, Maya, where you can find that information on. So after you read over it, okay, you would come to your sheet of paper and you would read over the information the author gave, and then you would think of the prior knowledge, which means that what do we bring to the table? What do we already know? Okay, so this would be a time when the group would collaborate. Okay, what do we already know about instances of this situation that the author has provided us with? And then lastly, the group will draw their conclusion and put it in this box. Okay, let's copy down the role of the writer. The writer fills in forms and writes as group dictates. Okay, so, yep, fills in forms and writes as the group dictates. Right, so that means that whatever the group says, the writer is writing down. If the group says to write down this, the writer has to write it down. If the group says to write down that, the writer has a responsibility of writing that down.
Can you put that thing in the handle part?
Oh. So far we'll have the reader who is reading everything in the story. But then we'll have the writer who's actually jotting down the information in the boxes with their utmost best penmanship. So after the group collaborates on what prior knowledge we bring to the table on this specific situation that the author gives us, once we come to a consensus on what that prior knowledge looks like, the writer will put that in the box. And then once our group collaborates on what conclusion can be evolved from adding those two together, then we also will put that, the writer will put that into the box, that conclusion. Now, keep in mind that, I'm only calling you because you're thinking. Keep in mind that, just like the young man said in the video, I'm not necessarily looking for a specific answer because I want to see what you all can come up with. I have conclusions that I've already written down based on my own thinking. But I want to see what you come up with. A lot of times you all come up with stuff that's way better than whatever I thought I was thinking of. Okay, and so I want to know what those conclusions could possibly be. Because remember, we can come to the table with different conclusions. They don't have to be the same. Valid conclusions can be different as long as they're backed up by the evidence in the story. Okay, next we're copying down the summarizer. the summarizer has the task and responsibility of summarizing what was read. So after a portion of the story has been read, meaning basically once we get to one of these instances that I've written down in the author's box, once we get to that point, the summarizer is going to stop and kind of summarize what's going on in the story so far. It's going to do that much. The summarizer summarizes what was read. So we read a certain portion, we get to each one of these benchmarks. I put the page numbers on there. Once you read over this quote, once you get to that part, then you want to stop and summarize what was just read in the group. What was just read. So the summarizer is going to do their best to summarize that. All right, so the summarizer makes sure all agree. So as we go around the group and we're like, so it's not just about what the summarizer thinks. We go around the group and we figure out how can we come to an agreement. Remember in our notes, in our objective, in our purpose. We went over our purpose yesterday, and it said that this has purpose in the workplace and in democratic communities. So wherever you have a vote or a voice, it's very important that you make sure that at least majority can agree. In your group, you're going to at least try to make sure that majority can agree and come to a consensus on the prior knowledge and then the conclusion. So make sure that your summarizer is not being a stage hog. Okay, they're not trying to steal the light and put all the answers down of what they think. And they're also making sure that everyone participates. So they are going to make sure that you do have something to say. So that's your participation also. So remember, I'm going to be going around and I'm just going to be facilitating. So if I say that, D'Angelo, if I say that you're the writer, I better see that you're the one who's writing everything that's being dictated into the boxes. Otherwise, if you pass it on over to Anthony and you say, man, I ain't writing this mess, you can go ahead and write it. That's your F for the assignment. The group is going to get an overall grade, but it's definitely going to be pulled down because one of the members took an F. Okay? I also shouldn't be able to see that the summarizer is doing all the work. Okay? Or that people are talking while the reader is reading. Everyone needs to have a book in front of them and be reading along silently. And also the reader doesn't have to read every single thing. The reader can also delegate, okay, I want you to read this time. Now, it would be short little pieces, like a paragraph here, a paragraph there, that other people would read, but it's a lot of reading to do, so the reader doesn't have to do all the reading. Or the reader can say, okay, on this page, we're going to read silently, and then we're going to come to a consensus and let the summarizer help us come to an agreement on what was this basically saying. Okay? So the reader has the power to do that, to select readers and to say when we're going to do silent reading. But majority of it should be read aloud, and I should hear that when I'm walking around.
I'll be the manager.
Pardon?
I'm going to be the manager.
Okay, thank you for taking us to the next one. The last one is the manager. And the manager keeps the time. And it keeps the group on task. Okay? So, when I was at Meyer, remember I said I grew up working at Meyer. So I started off in the 9th grade, but I worked there for 9 years after that. So I progressed into being a cashier. I went to the service desk first, then a cashier, then I became the overall supervisor. I wasn't the manager, but I had management responsibility because the managers only handled when people had to get written up. But everybody had to report to me in order to know what they're supposed to be doing that day, when they want to go on break, when they get to go home. All of that was my decision. So it was my job to keep track of the time. So I had to know when it's time for Rakaya to go on break, when it's time for her to get in because I need her to get on the checkout lane. Okay, when it's time for her to go home. Okay, it was up to me to keep my team on task. So if I see, one of my cashiers haven't come back from break yet, or they're lingering off and they're talking somewhere, hey, I need you back on your lane. Okay, or if I have too many people at the service desk, I need you to come out and open the lane, we're getting busy. Okay. The manager also gathers all the materials that's necessary. So you make sure that if your group needs the books or they need dictionaries or paper or pencils, make sure the manager has to make sure that all those materials are provided. Okay. And they also, most importantly, they give encouragement to the group members. Okay. So part of the manager is to that they give encouragement, they give compliments and praise, like, hey Skylar, you read that pretty well. Okay, so the manager will be talking to the reader and say, hey, that was some really good reading. Okay, or if the summarizer gets us to come to a really good summary of what was just read, or the prior knowledge, or a good conclusion, the manager will probably say, wow, that was deep. I'm impressed. Kudos to you. Okay? Or with the writer, you might say, dang, your penmanship is A1. Okay, so I need to hear that. And so whenever the manager gives some type of a compliment, that needs to be written down on the paper also. Okay, so the writer would write down all the compliments that were given, so I can know that the manager did their job. So hold on for 1 second. So if Robin says, Unique, your penmanship is awesome, then whoever the writer is in there, so she would be the manager, he would be the writer, whoever is, she would be the, she would be the manager, and he would be the writer. So whoever is the writer would write down what she just said. So he received a compliment from her, and he's the writer, so he write down that Robin gave me, Unique, a compliment on writing at 8:35. Okay? Question. Okay, so Otis, what does the writer do?
The writer, he writes down information. He writes down all the information.
Okay, writes down all of the information. Okay, including what?
Including the compliments and all that.
Including the compliments. Okay, including the compliments. Brandon, what does the reader do?
Reads the whole story.
Reads the entire story. Okay, what else can the reader do? Tell other people when to read. Donovan?
How about to say that?
Okay.
Tell people to read silently.
Tell people to read silently. Tell the entire group to read silently. Small sections though, the reader can't read the first 2 words of the story and say, okay, the rest of it we're reading silently. Okay, they got to read majority of it, but maybe a column we read silently, just to make sure everyone is reading along and paying attention. Faith. What is the responsibility of the manager?
A manager keeps things in track with the group
And
make sure they're all doing what they're supposed to do.
okay, and
Same station.
okay.
Provide materials. And keep time.
Oh, I didn't get that right. I'm sorry. And does what else?
Sign the date.
And to make sure that the task we're doing is finished.
And keeps
it working.
that too, but also keeps the time. Okay, so that's important, because if I say, hey, this is our last day on this. Okay, so we need to have this turned in before the end of the hour. And if you know that your group is, like analyzing every single detail to the T, like just overdoing it. Like we said when we did our first activity with the candy bars, and we said that the person who picked Mr. Goodbar just over analyzes everything to death. So if your group is really trying to go there, that's great. But a lot of times it'll take up too much time. So the manager has to say, hey, okay, we spent too much time on this one conclusion. We got to come to a consensus. So summarizer, I need you to jump in there and get us to a conclusion because we got to move on to the next one. Okay, so the manager needs to make sure they're keeping the time. Okay, they're keeping us going. All right, so let's have, don't pick the tape, Let's have 4 little egghead volunteers to come up. Who's going to volunteer?
I'm not an egghead.
Okay. Yes, you are. Come on up. 3. Okay. This is your mission should you choose to accept it. I want you to define the word of the day, which is already on the board, and I want you to apply all 5 steps that we do in vocabulary. And I want you to accomplish this task to that one word in a matter of 3 minutes. So it's 8:42. By 8:45, you need to be finished. Look up at your roll, read over your roll very carefully so you know exactly what you're supposed to do. Anthony, you're the writer. Donovan, you are the reader. Skylar, you're the manager. Unique, you're the summarizer. So Unique, you would probably be the one who would give the definition in your own words. So after we write down the definition, Anthony would write down the definition. Donovan would look up the word and give the definition. He would also give the phonetic spelling of it. He would give the part of speech of it. Anthony would write all that down. You would put the definition in your own words. That's step number 4. You would also come up with a sentence or try to get the group to help you collaborate on a sentence for that word. Okay, so we'll start in just a second. So you would get the group to collaborate on a sentence for that word. And then Skylar, you would keep the time and make sure that you give encouragement. Any encouragement that she gives Anthony, you need to write that down. We'll start as soon as I come to it. Okay, so what did we notice about their group? Thank you. Okay. It took longer than 3 minutes. Did they know that?
No.
Yes.
Faith, stand up. You lost your center privileges. That's warning number 1 for you and Johansen. Okay. Did they know that?
Nope. I did.
How did you know that? Right. Because your manager didn't do what?
Tell us the time.
The manager was not keeping the time. Hold on for 1 second. Good morning. The manager was not keeping the time, so they were guessing about how much time that they took. Okay. What else did what did we see? They were working together. All of them?
Yeah. No way. They can't do nothing.
Yes, he did, bro.
Some of that you realize.
Bro.
So what did you see Unique do? Sitting there. Okay. So you didn't did you
didn't hear nothing from Unique.
Okay, so I did notice that Unique provided a definition. He tried to reword the definition and he tried to give a sentence. When he tried to reword the definition, what didn't he do based on his role?
Asked everybody to see if it was agreeable.
Thank you. I'm glad you noticed that. He did not go around the group and make sure that everyone agreed on it. As a summarizer, you have to make sure that all agree. He just came up with his own. Okay? Now, when he came to the sentence, he did let people collaborate on it, but he didn't include everybody. I don't think anyone asked Skylar one thing. And I don't think Skylar said one thing. Okay? Skylar was the manager. We didn't see her take the time, and we didn't see her do what? Give encouragement. We didn't see her give encouragement. Okay? So one thing she did do, though, she got the materials, but she didn't keep the time. She didn't give encouragement, which the writer would have written down. Okay? Did we see the writer doing his job? We did.
Yes, he did.
We
Y'all see word on the paper, right? Y'all even concentrate, right?
We did. And now, do we see the reader doing his job? Okay. Now, now the reader, what did he do at first? He looked for the definition, and he took up majority of the time looking for the definition. What could the reader have done if it was taking him too long to find the definition? Probably ask somebody else to chime in and do it for him. Like, hey, it's been a minute since I've used a dictionary. Can somebody grab this, define this word for me a little faster than I can? Okay, remember the reader can delegate for people to read and whatnot. Okay, so so that's a demonstration of how the group should go. I'm going to be looking for all of those things as I go around. So I know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, so again, let's give them a round of applause.
That's still some ham.